The static on the radio gave way to a voice that shouldn't have been possible. We were 200 miles from the nearest town, in a dead zone with no cell service. Yet someone was speaking my name through the crackling speakers. I froze behind the wheel, my eyes darting to my sleeping wife in the passenger seat, wondering if she'd heard it too. Then the radio went silent, and all that remained was the endless highway stretching before us into the growing darkness of the Nevada desert. Been driving for nearly 14 hours when we decided to take the shortcut. My wife Emma and I were relocating from Seattle to Phoenix for my new job as a geological surveyor. The main interstate would have been safer, more populated, but GPS showed a route through the desert that would save us nearly 3 hours. It'll be an adventure, Emma had said with that smile that always convinced me. Now, as night descended and the last gas station faded to a distant memory in my rearview mirror, I was beginning to question that decision. Our Honda Civic was packed with the essentials we'd need until the moving truck arrived next week. The back seat and trunk were crammed with suitcases, boxes, and our aging golden retriever, Max, who had finally settled into sleep after hours of restless panting. The air conditioning worked just well enough to keep the desert heat at bay, though. The temperature was dropping now as night fell. The GPS had lost signal about an hour ago, but the road seemed straightforward enough, a 2-lane blacktop cutting through sand scrub, and the occasional rocky outcropping. The strange radio incident wasn't the first unusual occurrence since we'd taken the turn onto Route 47, a seldom used highway that didn't appear on most maps. About 30 minutes earlier, I noticed something odd about the mile markers. They seemed to be counting down normally, then would suddenly jump backward, as if we were losing ground despite maintaining a steady speed. I dismissed it as fatigue, playing tricks on my mind, but after the third time it happened, I couldn't ignore it. Even more disturbing, I was certain we had passed the same oddly shaped boulder 3 times now, despite traveling continuously in one direction. "Daniel, where are we?" Emma's voice startled me. She rubbed her eyes and squinted at the unfamiliar landscape outside. The sunset cast long shadows across the terrain, transforming the desert into something alien and forbidding. "Still en route." 47, I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "GPS is out, but we should reach the junction with Highway 95 in about an hour. Then it's just another 3 hours to Phoenix." Emma frowned, checking her phone. No signal still. How long was I asleep? "About 2 hours, I said, glancing at the dashboard clock, which now read 7:42 p.m. Something about that didn't seem right. Hadn't it been 7:42 when Emma had fallen asleep? I could have sworn I'd noted the time. "Did you see that?" Emma suddenly asked, pointing to something alongside the road. I slowed the car slightly, peering through the passenger window. For an instant, I thought I saw a figure standing among the yucca plants, tall and unnaturally thin, motionless despite the wind that was kicking up dust all around us. By the time I'd fully processed what I was seeing, we had already passed. "It probably just a cactus," I said, but I didn't believe my own words. Cacti don't wear hats, and I was almost certain I'd seen something like an old-fashioned wide-brimmed hat atop that figure. Emma didn't look convinced either, but settled back into her seat. Max had awakened in the back and was now whining softly, staring out the window at the darkening landscape with unusual intensity. I checked the fuel gauge, still half a tank, enough to get us to civilization even with a decent margin for error. The radio suddenly came back to life, but instead of static or the voice from before, it played what sounded like an old-time radio drama. The audio quality was pristine, too clear for a broadcast reaching this far into the desert. A man and woman were arguing about which road to take. "Turn it off," Emma whispered, her face pale in the blue glow of the dashboard lights. I reached for the dial, but just before my fingers touched it, the man's voice on the radio said, "Don't touch that dial, Daniel." I yanked my hand back as, If burned, the radio fell silent again on its own. "This isn't funny," Emma said, her voice tight with fear. "How did it know your name?" I had no answer. The coincidence was too precise to dismiss. I increased our speed, pushing the Civic to 80 miles per hour despite the uneven road surface. The sooner we reached the highway junction, the better. 10 minutes later, we saw lights ahead, the first sign of human presence we'd encountered in hours. As we approached, they resolved into what appeared to be an old gas station, its neon sign flickering weakly in the growing darkness. "Last stop gas and market," the sign proclaimed, with a smaller notice underneath that read, "Next services 200 miles. Should we stop?" Emma asked, her earlier fear now balanced with the practical concern of our fuel situation. I hesitated. Something about the place felt wrong. The vintage gas pumps that looked straight out of the 1950s. The absence of any vehicles despite the open sign. The strange bluish quality of the fluorescent lighting that spilled from the station's windows. But pragmatism won out. We needed to check the map, use a restroom, and confirm we were still on the right route. "We'll be quick," I promised. Pulling up to the pump, the air outside was cooler than expected and carried a strange scent, not the typical desert smell of dust and creosote, but something sweeter and older, like ceremonial incense. Max refused to get out of the car when Emma opened the back door, hunkering down with his ears flat against his head. The inside of the market was spotlessly clean and oddly well-stocked for such a remote location. A middle-aged woman stood behind the counter, her smile a little too fixed, her eyes never quite meeting mine as I asked about the route to Phoenix. "Oh, you don't want to continue on 47 at night," she said, her voice carrying an accent I couldn't place. "There's construction about 20 miles ahead. They close the road after 8 p.m. You'll need to backtrack to the fork and take the eastern route." "We didn't see any fork," Emma said, returning from the restroom, her face suggesting she'd found something disturbing there, that she wasn't ready to shed. The woman's smile didn't waver. "It's there, 15 miles back. Small sign. Easy to miss." Something about her phrasing felt stilted, unnatural. I glanced around the store and noticed for the first time that all the products looked slightly off familiar brands with logos that weren't quite right, packaging that seemed to belong to an earlier decade. "What year was this place built?" I asked, a seemingly innocent question that caused the woman's smile to falter momentarily. 1997, she replied, but something about the way her eyes shifted made me doubt her. "Funny," I said, pointing to a calendar on the wall. "That calendar says 1997, but the designs on it look more recent." The woman's expression changed almost imperceptibly. "Time works differently out here," she said, her tone no longer friendly. "You should leave now if you want to reach that fork before dark." Outside, Emma gripped my arm as we walked back to the car. "The bathroom," she whispered. There were names scratched into the wall. Hundreds of them, and dates. The most recent was from last week. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert night. "What kind of names?" "Travelers," she said. "People who stopped here." Some of the entries said things like, "Help us," or "We can't find the way out." "Daniel, I don't like this place." We got back in the car quickly. Max seemed relieved to see us, pressing his body against Emma's side as she settled into the passenger seat. I started the engine but paused before pulling away from the pump. The woman was watching us from the store window, her face now expressionless, hands hanging stiffly at her sides. "We're not going back," I decided aloud. "Fork or no fork, we keep moving forward." Emma nodded, though her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. I pulled away from the gas station, watching in the mirror as the lights receded behind us. Within minutes, the darkness had swallowed the establishment completely, as if it had never existed. The road stretched endlessly before us, the Civics, headlights illuminating just enough of the pavement to navigate while the vast desert beyond remained shrouded in darkness. I flicked on the high beams, which helped somewhat but created unsettling shadows among the desert plants that seemed to move in ways that didn't align with our passing. "Try the radio again," Emma suggested after nearly 20 minutes of tense silence. I hesitated, remembering the voice that had spoken my name, but turned it on anyway. This time, clear music filled the car, an old song from the 1930s or 40s, the kind of big band tune my grandfather used to play on his vintage record player. It was pleasant enough, incongruously cheerful given our circumstances, but still somehow wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. The song ended, and a smooth-voiced announcer spoke. That was Glenn Miller with Moonlight Serenade, a favorite of travelers on the long road. It's 8:15 p.m. on this beautiful evening, and you're listening to KWNR, the voice of the nowhere places. Our next caller is on the line now. A familiar voice came through the speaker's mind. It was unmistakably my voice saying words I'd spoken to Emma just minutes ago. "We're not going back. Fork or no fork, we keep moving forward." Emma's hand shot out and switched off the radio. "That's impossible," she whispered. "How could they have recorded you? How could they be broadcasting it now?" I had no answer, but a terrible suspicion was forming in my mind. I glanced at the dashboard clock again, still 7:42 p.m. It hadn't moved in at least 45 minutes. "Emma," I said slowly, "what time does your watch say?" She looked down at her wrist. That's strange. It says 7:42, but that can't be right. It was working fine earlier today. Check your phone." She did. Same time. 7:42. But we've been driving for at least an hour since I last checked it. And it was already 7:42 then. A heavy silence fell between us as the implications sank in. Either every timepiece we had was malfunctioning in exactly the same way, or something was very wrong with time itself in this place. The road ahead suddenly split, a fork that appeared without warning, with no signs indicating either direction. I slowed the car, headlights illuminating two identical stretches of asphalt disappearing into darkness. "Which way?" Emma asked, her voice barely audible. Before I could answer, the radio switched itself back on. The announcer's voice returned, calm and intimate, as if he were sitting in the car with us. "Left takes you back to where you started. Right takes you where they all end up eventually. Choose carefully, friends." I switched off the radio with a shaking hand, but the damage was done. The cheerful certainty I'd been maintaining, that this was all just a series of strange coincidences, and we would soon find our way back to the main highway, was crumbling rapidly. "Let's go right," Emma said finally. "Left takes us back to that gas station, if we can even trust what the radio said." I nodded and turned the wheel, steering us down the right fork. As we made the turn, I caught a glimpse of something in my side mirror, a tall figure standing at the junction, watching our departure. The same figure I'd glimpsed earlier among the yucca plants, its face hidden beneath the wide-brimmed hat. For the next 30 minutes, the road remained straight and featureless. The clock still reads 7:42. The moon hung motionless in the sky, and even the fuel gauge seemed frozen at its half-tank reading. We drove in silence, both of us afraid to voice the growing certainty that we had stumbled into something beyond our understanding. When the lights appeared ahead, I initially felt a surge of relief, another gas station, perhaps, or even a small town. But as we drew closer, my hope turned to confusion. It wasn't a building or settlement, but a line of cars parked along the roadside, at least a dozen of them stretching into the distance. Their headlights were on, illuminating the empty road ahead. I slowed as we approached the first vehicle, an old Buick that looked like it belonged in a museum. A family sat inside, motionless, staring straight ahead through the windshield. There, clothes and hairstyles suggested the 1960s, but there was something else wrong with the image. It took me a moment to realize what it was. They weren't moving at all. Not breathing, not blinking, just sitting as if frozen in time, illuminated by their own headlights. "Don't stop," Emma whispered, and I obeyed, accelerating past the Buick. The next car was more modern, a 1980s station wagon. The same scene inside a frozen family, this time caught in the middle of what appeared to be an argument. The father's face contorted in mid-shout, the mother's hand raised as if to shield herself. Children in the back wide-eyed with fear. Car after car lined the road, each containing passengers suspended in a moment of time, some from decades ago, some that looked recent enough to have been traveling the same day as us. None showed any signs of violence or injury. They simply had stopped, as if someone had pressed a universal pause button. "What is this place?" Emma's voice shook as we passed a car from what looked like the early 2000s, containing a young couple leaning toward each other, forever frozen just before a kiss. I shook my head, unable to form a coherent theory. The desert had always held mysteries, mirages, strange lights, inexplicable acoustic phenomena. But this was beyond any rational explanation. As we reached the last car in line, a red Tesla with California plates that couldn't be more than a year old, I made a decision and pulled up behind it, leaving enough space to turn around if necessary. "Why? Are we stopping?" Emma asked, panic edging into her voice. "Because I need to understand what's happening," I said, putting the car in park but leaving the engine running. "We can't just keep driving blindly." I opened my door, ignoring Emma's protests, and stepped out into the cool desert night. The silence was absolute. No wind, no insects, not even the sound of our car's engine, though I could see the exhaust rising from the tailpipe. I approached the Tesla cautiously, peering through its rear window. A man sat alone inside, his face illuminated by the glow of the dashboard. Unlike the other frozen travelers, he moved, turning slowly to look at me with eyes that reflected no light. His mouth formed words I couldn't hear. I stepped closer, trying to read his lips. "Don't look back," he seemed to be saying. "Whatever you do, don't look back at your own car." A chill ran through me. Every instinct screamed to disobey, to turn and check on Emma and Max, to confirm they were safe. But something in the man's expression, a terrible knowledge, an absolute certainty, kept me facing forward. "What happened to you?" I asked, not knowing if he could hear me. His hand rose to the window, pressing against the glass. I saw now that his skin had a translucent quality, as if he were somehow less substantial than his surroundings. His lips moved again. We all chose the right fork. A sound finally broke the silence, Max barking frantically from our car. Despite the stranger's warning, I turned. Our Honda sat where I'd parked it, headlights still blazing, but something was wrong with the scene. Emma wasn't in the passenger seat anymore. Instead, she stood on the road between me and our car, her back to me, utterly still. Max continued barking, jumping against the window as if trying to escape. "Emma?" I called, taking a step toward her. She didn't respond, didn't move, didn't give any indication she'd heard me. Her posture was unnatural spine, too straight, arms hanging at precise angles that no relaxed human would maintain. "Don't go closer," the man in the Tesla said, his voice suddenly audible though the windows remained closed. "That's not your wife anymore." I froze, torn between disbelief and a terrible intuition that he was right. "What do you mean? What happened?" "To her, the same thing that happens to everyone who stops too long on this road," he replied. "The nowhere claims them, changes them." "The nowhere?" I repeated, the strange term sending another chill through me. "That's what we call it. A place between places. It looks like the world, feels like the world, but it's just a copy, a reflection. And those who stay too long become part of the reflection." As if responding to his words, Emma began to turn, her movement unnaturally smooth, rotating in place, rather than shifting her feet. I caught a glimpse of her profile and stopped breathing. Her features were blurring, losing definition, as if she were a photograph being gradually erased. "Run!" the man in the Tesla urged. "Get back in your car and drive. Don't stop again until sunrise, if sunrise still comes for you." I backed away from both Emma and the Tesla, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Emma continued her mechanical turn, her face now fully visible, or what remained of her face. Where her features should have been was a smooth blankness, with just indentations suggesting eyes and mouth. Like a department store mannequin, Max's barking reached a frenzied pitch. The sound anchored me to reality, or what was left of it, and broke my paralysis. I ran for the driver's side of our car, not looking at the thing that had been Emma as I passed it. I threw myself behind the wheel, slammed the door, and locked it in one desperate motion. The Emma thing stood motionless on the road, its featureless face oriented toward me. Max pressed against my side, whimpering now rather than barking. I threw the car into reverse, executed a frantic three-point turn, and accelerated back the way we had come, away from the line of frozen vehicles dot in my rearview mirror. I saw the Emma thing still standing in the road, watching us depart. Next to it now stood another figure, tall, thin, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. As I watched, more figures emerged from the darkness to join them, each with the same blank features, each standing in perfect stillness. I drove recklessly fast, hoping to reach the fork again and take the left path this time. The dashboard clock still reads 7:42 p.m., mocking any sense that time was passing normally. The radio switched itself on again, but instead of music or the announcer, it broadcast the sound of breathing slow, measured breaths that didn't match my own panicked gasps. After what felt like hours but could have been minutes, I saw the fork looming ahead. I slowed just enough to make the turn safely, taking the left path this time. As I did, the breathing on the radio stopped, replaced by Emma's voice. "Daniel, why did you leave me behind?" I reached for the radio to shut it off, but my hand froze. At Emma's next words, "I'm still here, Daniel." I'm in the back seat. Dread washed over me like ice water. I couldn't stop myself from glancing in the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty except for Max, who was staring intently at the space. Beside him, his hackles raised. "You can't see me yet," Emma's voice continued from the radio, "but you will. Everyone who enters the nowhere leaves something behind and takes something with them. You left me behind. Guess what's coming with you?" The radio died with a burst of static. The road stretched endlessly before me, identical in both directions now. The fuel gauge finally moved, dropping suddenly from half to nearly empty. Warning lights flashed on the dashboard. The engine sputtered. I had no choice but to pull over. As the car rolled to a stop, the headlights dimmed and failed, leaving me in complete darkness. In the newfound silence, I could hear breathing again. Not from the radio this time, but from the back seat. Max growled low in his throat, backing up against the passenger door, as far as possible from the empty space beside him. "Emma?" I whispered, afraid to turn around. No answer came, but the breathing continued slow, deliberate, waiting. I reached slowly for the door handle, thinking I might have a better chance on foot than trapped in the car with whatever had followed. Emmy. Before my fingers touched the metal, the dashboard clock finally changed, its digital display flicking from 7:42 to 7:43. Something cold brushed against the back of my neck, a touch so light it might have been imagination, followed by Emma's voice right beside my ear. "Time moves differently in the nowhere, Daniel. Sometimes it stops completely. Sometimes it moves backward. But for you, It's finally moving forward again. Let's see where it takes us. I close my eyes, my hand still frozen halfway to the door handle, as a pair of arms that shouldn't exist wrapped around me from behind, their touch cold as desert night, their grip relentless as time itself. Morning light filtered through the dusty windshield, waking me with its harsh glare. I blinked, disoriented, my neck stiff from sleeping in the driver's seat. The events of the night came rushing back. The strange road, the frozen cars, Emma. I turned frantically, scanning the car. Max lay in the back seat, still sleeping. The passenger seat beside me was empty. No sign of Emma. No evidence of the nightmare I'd experienced. The clock on the dashboard read 7:14 a.m. The fuel gauge showed a quarter, tank enough to reach civilization. Had it all been a dream? A hallucination brought on by exhaustion and the disorienting emptiness of the desert night? I rubbed my face, trying to sort memory from nightmare. The last thing I clearly remembered was stopping at that gas station. Last stop, the sign had said. After that, everything blurred into a surreal horror I couldn't quite believe was real. I stepped out of the car, stretching my cramped muscles. The morning desert was already warming, the air shimmering above the asphalt. In daylight, Route 47 looked ordinary enough, a neglected back road through uninhabited terrain, but nothing supernatural or threatening. About a quarter mile ahead, I could see a road sign. Perhaps it would confirm where I was. Help me get my bearings. Max woke as I started the engine, yawning and wagging his tail as if nothing unusual had happened. "Where's Emma, boy?" I asked, the normality of my own voice reassuring. He tilted his head at the question but offered no canine insights. The sign, when I reached it, was a standard green highway marker. Junction 95 to 5 miles. Relief flooded through me. We were almost back to a main highway. Whatever strange detour we'd taken, whatever hallucinations had plagued me, we would soon be back in the realm of self-service, gas stations, and other travelers. I reached for my phone to check the time again and found it missing from my pocket. After a moment's panic, I spotted it on the passenger seat, plugged into the charger. The screen showed several missed calls and a series of increasingly worried text messages from Emma. "Where are you?" The first one read, timestamped 9:30 p.m. "Yesterday. Called the hotel. They said you never checked in." The next, from midnight. "Daniel, please call me as soon as you get this. I'm really worried." And the most recent, from just an hour ago. "I've called the police. They're checking the route you were supposed to take. Please be okay." I stared at the phone, unable to process what I was seeing. The messages were definitely from Emma's number, but that was impossible. Emma had been with me in the car. She had suggested the shortcut. She had vanished on that strange forgotten highway. Unless a terrible suspicion formed in my mind. I called Emma's number with shaking fingers. She answered on the first ring. "Daniel? Oh my God, are you okay? Where have you been?" A voice, unmistakably Emma's voice, full of worry and relief. "I'm on Route 47, I said carefully. "About 5 miles from Highway 95. Emma. Weren't you with me?" "We were driving to Phoenix. Together." A long pause. "Daniel, what are you talking about?" "I'm still in Seattle. I don't leave until tomorrow. We agreed you go ahead to get the new apartment set up. Don't you remember?" I gripped the steering wheel to steady myself. "Of course," I lied. "Sorry, I'm just exhausted. Got turned around on these back roads and had to pull over to sleep." Phone died. "Well, thank God you're all right," she said. "You have me terrified. I've been up all night." "I'm fine," I assured her, though nothing felt fine. Just a little confused from lack of sleep. "I'll call you when I get to Phoenix." We said goodbye, and I sat in stunned silence, trying to make sense of what was happening. If Emma had never left Seattle, who or what had been in the car with me? I glanced at Max, who was watching me with unusual intensity. "It was just us, wasn't it, boy?" I asked. He whined softly in response. I put the car in drive and continued toward the junction, desperate to reach Highway 95 and whatever certainty it might provide. As I drove, I became aware of something odd. The car felt different, heavier somehow, as if carrying an additional passenger. The rearview mirror showed only Max in the back seat, yet I couldn't shake the sensation of another presence. The radio turned on by itself, playing that same vintage big band music from the night before. I moved to switch it off, but stopped when an announcement broke through the music. "This is KWNR, the voice of the nowhere places. A special message for our traveler. Returning to the world. You may have left the nowhere, but the nowhere hasn't left you. Safe journeys, Daniel. We'll be waiting when you return, and you will return. Everyone does, eventually." The broadcast dissolved into static, then silence. I turned off the radio with a sharp jab and pressed the accelerator, pushing the car faster toward the junction. Highway 95 appeared ahead, blissfully normal with its proper lane markings and occasional passing vehicles. I merged onto it with a sense of escape, heading south toward Phoenix. My phone chimed with a text message. "Emma again. Drive safe. Love you." I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I found myself staring at the passenger seat, half expecting to see someone there. The seat remained empty, yet when I looked back at the road, I caught a glimpse of something in my peripheral vision, a suggestion of a figure sitting beside me that vanished when I turned my head. The air conditioner was running, but a persistent cold spot remained by my right shoulder. Occasionally, when I changed lanes or adjusted the mirror, I thought I saw a face there, not Emma's, but featureless, blank. Like the thing I'd seen on Route 47. Max continued to stare at the empty passenger seat, sometimes growling softly for no apparent reason. As Phoenix appeared on the horizon, its buildings shimmering in the desert heat, I tried to convince myself that last night had been nothing more than a vivid nightmare. I would reach our new apartment, sleep in a proper bed, and wake refreshed with the horror fading like any bad dream. But deep down, I knew better. The nowhere, whatever it was, had touched me, changed me. I could feel it in the persistent cold that no amount of desert heat could dispel, in the whispers that hovered just below the threshold of hearing, in the weight of unseen eyes watching my every move. My phone rang again. Emma's name flashed on the screen. I answered, trying to sound normal. Double quotes. "Hey, just checking in," she said. "Did you find the apartment okay?" I hadn't reached it yet, but I heard myself saying, "Yes, it's perfect. You're going to love it." "That's great. I can't wait to see it tomorrow. My flight gets in at 2 p.m. A terrible realization dawned on me. Emma was coming. Tomorrow, she would board a plane, fly to Phoenix, and step into whatever lingering wrongness had followed me from Route 47. "Actually," I heard myself saying, as if from a distance, "why don't you take the scenic route instead? There's this shortcut through the desert, Route 47. It'll save you time from the airport." Horror washed over me as the words left my mouth. I hadn't meant to say them. I tried to take them back, to warn her, but my mouth wouldn't form the words. "Oh? That's not what the map shows," Emma replied, confused. "Trust me," my voice said without my permission. "It's an adventure." In the rearview mirror, Max was growling again, staring not at the passenger seat now, but directly at me. And in the reflection, just for a moment, I saw what he was seeing, my face smooth and featureless, like those figures from the nowhere place. My real face, perhaps. "Daniel, are you still there?" Emma asked. I fought against whatever was controlling me, managed to force out words that were truly mine. "Don't come. Stay in Seattle. Something's wrong." The cold spot beside me intensified, spreading until it enveloped me completely. My voice, when it returned, was once again disconnected from my will. Sorry, bad connection. Like I was saying, Route 47 is much faster. I'll text you the directions. Okay, if you say so, Emma agreed, hesitation in her voice. Are you feeling all right? You sound strange. Never better, my mouth replied as my mind screamed in silent protest. The desert air agrees with me. You're going to love it here. Emma, it's a whole other world. I ended the call and watched in helpless horror as my hands began composing a text message with detailed directions to Route 47. My body was no longer fully my own, and whatever had hitched a ride out of the nowhere. Place had plans for Emma. The Phoenix skyline grew larger through the windshield. My new life was waiting there, the job, the apartment, all the normal things I'd been looking forward to. But normalcy felt like a fading dream now. The nowhere had claimed part of me, and soon it would claim Emma too. As I drove toward the city. The radio switched on again, unprompted. This time, no music played, no announcer spoke. Instead, I heard the sound of tires on asphalt, the hum of an engine, the soft breathing of a passenger who wasn't there, the sound of another car, traveling, another road. The sound of Emma, perhaps, already on her journey to join me. The sound of the nowhere, expanding its reach one traveler at a time. And in the growing light of the Arizona morning, I realized with perfect clarity that I would never escape what I had brought back with me from Route 47. The nowhere had found its way into the world through me. And now it was hungry for more. As I approached the exit for Central Phoenix, a text alert chimed. Emma again. Found a great deal on an earlier flight. Landing tonight at 9. Can't wait to see you and take that scenic route you mentioned. Love you. Tonight. She was coming tonight. The wrongness inside me hummed with anticipation while what remained of my true self silently screamed a warning no one would ever hear. Behind me, Max had fallen silent, his eyes now vacant and staring, watching the empty passenger seat where something invisible sat, something patient and cold that had been waiting a very long time for new travelers to welcome to the nowhere. The clock on the dashboard flicked from 10:41 to 7:42, then back again, as if it couldn't quite decide which time was real anymore. Perhaps none of them were. Perhaps time, like everything else in the nowhere, was just another reflection, another copy of something genuine that lay forever beyond reach. The realization hit me with such force that I nearly drove off the road. I could break the cycle. Not for myself, I was already claimed, but for Emma. I fought against the cold presence controlling me and managed to pull the car into a gas station parking lot. My hands trembled as I fought for control of my own body, reaching for my phone to warn Emma. The entity inside me resisted, sending waves of paralyzing cold through my limbs. Max growled from the back seat, his eyes fixed not on me now but on something only he could see taking shape in the air between us. I pushed through the resistance, my fingers finding Emma's contact information. Instead of calling, I began typing a text message, something the entity might not be able to intercept as easily as my voice. Danger. Don't come. Possessed. RAF 47 trap. The cold intensified, my vision darkening at the edges. I hit send just before my fingers went numb and the phone dropped from my grasp. A terrible pressure built inside my skull as the entity's rage manifested physically. She won't believe you. My mouth said in a voice that wasn't mine. They never do. The nowhere always finds a way. My phone chimed with a response from Emma. Daniel? What's going on? Are you okay? Before I could attempt another message, my body moved without my consent, fingers typing. Sorry about that. Just a stupid joke. Flight still good for tonight. Can't wait to see you. I screamed internally, fighting for control of my own hands. The nowhere entity was strong, but my desperation gave me momentary advantage. I managed one more message. Not joke, Real danger. Call the police. I'm in. The entity cut me off mid-word, my fingers suddenly refusing to obey. The phone displayed Emma's response. Daniel, you're scaring me. I'm calling 911 to check on you. A cold smile spread across my face. I could feel it, though I wasn't the one smiling. Perfect, my voice whispered. More travelers for the nowhere. The world around me began to change. The gas station, the Phoenix skyline, the normal busy street, all grew dim and translucent, like photographs fading in sunlight. Behind them, I could see another reality asserting itself. The endless desert road, the night sky, Route 47 stretching into infinity. My phone rang. Emma calling now, panic evident even in the ringtone's vibration. The nowhere entity reached for it, but in that moment, Max launched himself from the back seat, jaws clamping down on my forearm. The sudden pain broke the entity's concentration just enough for me to reassert control. I grabbed the phone with my free hand. Emma! I gasped. Listen carefully. Something happened to me on Route 47. Something not human. It's inside me now, trying to lure you here too. Don't come to Phoenix. Don't follow any directions I've sent you. Get as far away as possible. Daniel, you need help. Emma's voice trembled. I've called the Phoenix police. They're tracking your phone location now. The entity regained control, shoving Max away with inhuman strength. Emma, darling, it said with my voice, perfectly mimicking my normal tone. I'm so sorry to frighten you. I've been having these episodes. The doctor says it's exhaustion combined with heat stroke. Everything's fine now. The police are on their way, Emma said, unconvinced. Just stay where you are. The nowhere entity laughed, a sound like sand, blowing across abandoned graves. We'll be waiting for them, it said, before ending the call. My consciousness was fading now, pushed further into the background of my own mind. Through increasingly distant awareness, I felt my body exit the car, felt Max's attempts to follow being thwarted as the entity locked him inside. I heard sirens approaching as my legs carried me toward a maintenance door at the back of the gas station. The door opened onto not a storage room but a stretch of desert highway Route 47, impossibly existing in the middle of Phoenix. Standing in the doorway was the tall figure in the wide-brimmed hat I'd seen before, its featureless face somehow conveying satisfaction. The travelers are coming, my voice told it. Many of them. The nowhere grows stronger. The figure nodded, stepping aside to let me pass through onto the highway. Behind me, I heard police officers shouting, heard Max barking frantically from inside the car. I fought with everything I had left, trying to stop my legs from carrying me through that impossible doorway. For one precious moment, I broke through. I turned back, saw the police approaching, saw the normal world I was about to leave forever. Route 47. I screamed with my own voice, my true voice. Destroy all maps showing Route 47. It's not a place, it's a thing, a parasite. It's spreading. And? Officer reached for me, but it was too late. The entity reasserted control, pulling me backward through the doorway. The last thing I saw before the door closed was Max breaking through the car window, racing toward me, his loyal eyes fixed on mine with desperate determination. The door vanished, and I stood on Route 47 once more, the night sky above, the desert, stretching endlessly in all directions. The tall figure stood beside me, along with others, the gas station attendant, the Tesla driver, and dozens more, all with the same blank features, all former travelers claimed by the nowhere. Welcome home, they said in unison, their voices merging with the wind dot. My awareness retreated further, becoming just a passenger in my own body. I could still perceive, still think, but control was gone. The nowhere had almost completely claimed. Almost. A sound broke the stillness, barking, growing louder. Impossibly, Max appeared on the highway, running toward me, somehow having followed through the doorway between worlds. The nowhere entities turned toward him, surprised by this intrusion. In that moment of distraction, I felt something change. Inside me, the cold presence faltered, its grip on my consciousness loosening just enough. Max reached me, pushing against my legs, his familiar warmth cutting through the nowhere's chill. I reached down to touch him, my move, my choice, my dog, my connection to the real world, to life and love and everything the nowhere could only imitate but never truly possess. "He followed you," the tall figure said, its voice like dry leaves. "Curious. Nothing alive has ever entered the nowhere willingly before." "He didn't come for the nowhere," I said, my own voice returning stronger with each word. "He came for me." Max's presence was like an anchor, something real to hold on to amid the illusions. I felt my sense of self solidifying, the boundary between me and the entity becoming clearer. Not enough to expel it completely, but enough to establish a fragile equilibrium. "You cannot leave," the blank faces said together. "No one leaves the nowhere." "I'm not trying to leave," I replied, an idea forming desperate, perhaps impossible, but the only chance Emma and the others might have. "I'm trying to end it." I pulled my lighter from my pocket, a real object from the real world. The nowhere entities stepped back, suddenly wary. They knew what I had realized. The nowhere might bend reality, might create illusions and manipulate perception, but it wasn't invulnerable. It had rules, limitations. It needed travelers to sustain itself, to cross boundaries, to grow. "The nowhere has existed for centuries," the tall figure said, less certain now. "It cannot be destroyed by one traveler." "Maybe not," I agreed, flicking the lighter to produce a flame. "But I can close one of its doors." I touched the flame to my shirt sleeve. Fire was real, primal, belonging to the physical world but nowhere could only imitate. The flames caught, spreading quickly, illuminating the false night with genuine light. The nowhere entities retreated further, their blank faces showing emotion for the first time, fear. They had claimed me, merged with me, tied their extension into the real world, to my physical form. And now that connection was burning. Pain engulfed me, but I embraced it. It was real, undeniable proof that I still existed beneath the nowhere's influence. Max barked frantically, but stayed by my side. As the flames spread, the highway beneath my feet began to flicker like a failing projection. The desert landscape wavered, revealing glimpses of the gas station maintenance area behind it. The boundary was weakening. "Others will come," the tall figure promised, its form becoming transparent as the nowhere's hold on reality through me diminished. "Other roads will open. The nowhere is patient." "Then someone else will have to stop you there," I gasped through the pain. "But Route 47 ends here." The nowhere entities disappeared one by one as the flames consumed more of their anchor to reality. My consciousness began to fade, not into the nowhere this time, but into genuine darkness. My last thoughts were of Emma safe now, warned away from the trap that had claimed me. My last sensation was Max pressing against my legs, loyal to the end. His warmth, the final real thing I would ever feel. Days later, authorities would find a burned body behind a Phoenix gas station, a golden retriever refusing to leave its side. Despite all attempts to move him, they would find no explanation for the fire, no maintenance door where witnesses claimed to have seen one. Emma would arrive, heartbroken and confused, to collect both my remains and the grieving Max. She would find my phone with the desperate warnings, would connect them to reports from the responding officers about my rambling final words. Most would dismiss it as delusion or mental breakdown, but Emma would remember the strange texts, the fear in my voice during our last call. She would begin researching, gathering stories of other disappearances along remote highways. She would create a map marking these incidents, eventually noticing a pattern, a network of isolated roads where travelers vanished or returned changed. At the center of this network, the now abandoned Route 47 closed after my death due to structural concerns cited by highway officials, who could never quite explain their sudden interest in an obscure desert road that nowhere had lost one access point. But as the entity had promised, there were others. Sometimes, on long drives through empty places, travelers still hear mysterious radio broadcasts from KWNR, the voice of the nowhere places. Sometimes they see figures watching from the roadside, wearing wide-brimmed hats and standing too still to be human. And sometimes, if they listen carefully during silent moments in the darkest hours of night, they can hear what might be a dog barking, distant and distorted, but persistent. A warning, perhaps, from the only being to have entered the nowhere by choice and helped close one of its doors. The nowhere still waits in those liminal spaces between destinations, patient and hungry for new travelers. But now, thanks to one man and his loyal companion, it waits with caution, aware that its prey might someday become its destruction. So if you're driving late at night and come across an unmarked road that doesn't appear on your map, a shortcut that promises to save you time but seems too convenient to be true, drive on. Stay on the main highway, no matter how long it takes. Some destinations aren't worth the journey. Some nowheres are better left unfound. I took the exit toward my new apartment, toward my new life, knowing that by nightfall, Emma would join me on this journey into the heart of the nowhere, a journey that never truly ends, merely transforms, like a road that circles back on itself in the darkest part of the desert night.